I'm Matt Wilhelmi. I'm the owner of Strategic Voyages Business Consultants. I'm also the author of Taboo Business Questions, What's Haunting Every Entrepreneur's Growth. And today I'm really excited because I'm joined by Alison White. She is a fractional VP of Sales and Marketing with a history working with executives and CEOs in the food manufacturing and food packaging spaces. She's often a trusted advisor to those executives and providing them sales leadership guidance to their teams. And Alison, just thank you so much for joining me today. I've had such a great time kind of unpacking some of the things we've talked about so far.
Thanks, Matt. Me too. It's been really great unpacking this with you.
Yeah, and so just to kind of let everybody into kind of what we're working on, Alison and I discovered a case study where this specialty dessert manufacturing company based in Chicago with $10 million in revenue, 8 sales reps, had a number of different issues. And Alison was very, careful in unpacking kind of what those issues might be. And what we came up with were these 3 distinct issues. And in this episode, we're going to present some solutions. But before we get to that, I do just kind of want to recap those 3 issues. The first one is a sales rep. They have a hard time getting repeat business. And as I'm sure you can imagine, that does have some long-lasting effects in the organization, specifically to the finance piece, which is near and dear to my heart. The second one was a lack of dedicated leadership. And that kind of causes some issues with accountability for the team. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. The third issue they have is a lack of a process overall. And when you have a lack of a sales process, you tend to run into some issues like forecasting. You run into issues with those relationship managements. And obviously with software, then if you don't have a process, probably software is going to be an issue as well. And so, Alison, again, I'm just really excited that you're able to kind of give some of your expertise here. 20 plus years as an executive in the sales and sales leadership industry, specifically around food packaging. This is right in your wheelhouse, right?
Yeah, it sure is. I was really happy to dive into this with you because it is in my wheelhouse, and I'm a little bit passionate about sales.
Well, I'm sure that, passion isn't the only thing. You've been doing it for quite a while. You're an expert. And so I think it's important to just clarify that these issues are not crazy, right? You've seen these issues before, even in big organizations. You work with billion-dollar companies, they have these same issues as this $10 million company, right?
Oh, absolutely. Every organization has some type of issue or challenge that they need to address. Not always in the sales organization, but for the purpose of today, we are talking about sales. And there's if you don't have a process, if you don't have a system to make everything visible to everybody in the organization, if you're not getting feedback, all these things come into play.
And so, Alison, as a sales executive, as a fractional VP of sales and marketing, sales and leadership, you've seen these issues before. What would be your approach to kind of starting to solve some of these issues? How would you do that?
So first of all, I think we've already, talked about the reps, and the reps really need leadership. They need constant leadership, not just, checking in once in a while. Leadership is about working with your team, encouraging them, motivating them, letting them, empowering them to go out and get that business that's going to drive the revenue for the organization. The easy part sometimes for a rep is getting the business. The harder part is keeping the business. And I know that's what we're going to talk about, but there has to be a process up front to really start looking at the customer value, the customer lifetime value, which is a really powerful metric, by the way, for any organization to determine which customers are most profitable.
Yeah, obviously the sales rep's role is to find these accounts and get them to place an order. And they spend all this energy and all this time hunting new accounts. but how much easier is it to do a good job and follow up and then make another order, right? And so when you're talking about lifetime value of a client relationship, hopefully it's more than just a one and done.
Absolutely. I mean, you need to have a process in place, and actually you really need a strategy. And, there's a lot of organizations build in a customer retention strategy into their overall strategy, because really it costs more to get a new customer than it does to keep a customer over, a lifetime of the organization. There's much more value in retaining those customers.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you'd be open to sharing just maybe an example or two of a customer retention strategy, because what immediately comes to my mind is maybe some mistakes that sales reps have made where they think of a customer retention strategy as giving them a discount on their second order. And that might be a decent idea. I would hope there's some other ideas that are better than that one. Do you have any examples you could share?
Yeah. Well, that's why, the cost of acquisition is higher than the cost of retention, because you are ultimately going to give something away to a new customer. What happens is when that customer continues to buy and collaborate with you, I don't have a specific example. I would just say that in all of my years of being a sales leader, it starts with understanding your customer. You've got to put in the time to understand the customer. And I think up front I asked you about the sales reps and their territories. Segmenting customers based on things like demographics, purchasing behaviors, and preferences is really important to start with, because that's where you're going to know if that customer is transactional, meaning they're going to buy on price, or if that customer is valuable because they want to partner with you and collaborate with you on, innovation.
Yeah, I was thinking just really quickly here off the top of my head, there's a couple of retention strategies that I'm sure you've either implemented or seen, but it doesn't necessarily result in a discount on the second order. From the CFO's perspective, you'd want to have maybe a longer standing relationship before you start discounting. Not that discounts are bad, but maybe it's more of a loyalty program where it's, hey, if we can see some consistent volume over time, then we'll consider a discount, or you'll hit maybe a tier where we know that you're in our platinum category. And in order to get to our platinum category, you got to spend $20 million. And so you spent 19 or you spent 12, like, hey, but we got to get to this point. And so they know that, if they can increase their volume, that they might get there. And so that was just one idea. I had a company that I worked with implement a similar strategy, and it worked really, really well for them. It actually became a really big strategy, not just for retention, but for their overall client acquisition, because, you really wanted to be part of the platinum group, because the platinum group got invited to the annual summit, or, the platinum group got, these fancy other benefits. And so, well, how do I get to be a platinum member? Like, everybody wants to be a platinum member, right? And so it was interesting just to see kind of the psychology twist when you started to put these attractive labels on some of these client buying categories and behaviors. And so you've mentioned it a couple of times, Alison, but I think it's worth repeating one more time. It is cheaper to retain customers than it is to find new ones. And so part of their strategy, it sounds like, for this particular specialty dessert manufacturer, really needed to be retaining those existing clients. But you can't ignore going out and hunting, right? And so I'm sure as a sales leader, you're always kind of talking about both sides of that equation, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. They're, we call them hunters and farmers, right? The hunters will acquire the new business. The farmers will manage it. Best case scenario is that you have a sales rep that can do both. And that sales rep understands the value of having repeat business under their portfolio. So, and you know, as you gather data on customers, as you said, you incentivize them. So you know, as you grow with that customer, you learn their behaviors. You can, you know, personalize marketing programs for them. You can work with them on all kinds of incentives and ideas.
One of the issues you brought up, Allison, was around the lack of a sales leader and a dedicated sales leader because of the issue with accountability and kind of focus and some of the things you just mentioned. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it does sound like you're saying, hey, like if the CEO that was sort of playing this leadership role could maybe find a budget, figure out how to do it, it might have solved some of his problems just by doing that, right? You have to find that sales leader. If they would have found you as a fractional VP of sales and sales leadership, maybe you could have stepped in to help some of those issues, right? Isn't that what a fractional VP of sales does?
Absolutely. That is that's the sweet spot for sure. Because then we can really dig into, you know, what I said up front, digging into the weeds. Where is the breakdown? It could be a breakdown in process or communication. You know, there's customer focus. As a sales leader, there's also the customer service aspect of it. That's really important for organizations to have dedicated customer service representatives that work hand in hand with the salesperson. So you could have, you know, your salespeople going out, acquiring the business, and the customer service person does the first follow-up. Hey, we see that you got your order. Was everything okay? Any hiccups? You know, let us know. That type of thing.
Yeah. So if a company has some of these common sales issues, perhaps they think that hiring a sales executive is going to be a lot of money, right? It's hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're going to, you know, take time to get up and running. And I've heard all the excuses. And so I would guess that, you know, when somebody's having these issues, you know, they have a lack of a process and they don't have accountability. They aren't even able to necessarily solve that themselves because they're the problem. And so if they were to hire a fractional VP of sales, it might just solve itself. You know, you'd come in, it sounds like you'd want to talk about process and strategy. Hopefully everybody would love to hear those words. But then, you know, even more than that, you bring a lot of experience to the table. You're able to have the time and the dedication and the energy and then the wherewithal to say, look, this is the specific problem and this is how we solve it. You're not, you know, guessing anymore because you're there, you're on site, or you're figuring it out. And so I could just see tremendous value in an organization, you know, taking on somebody like yourself as a fractional VP of sales. I'm curious, Allison, if there's any other kind of solutions that you'd want to talk about. You know, we mentioned, you know, having a lack of process. We didn't really touch on software. I'm not sure if we have time to really dive into that too much, but I don't think it would be anybody's surprise here at this point if they were to follow us all the way through to learn that they were really not utilizing a sales software. And so, you know, you mentioned a couple of organizations you've worked with in helping implement that. And so that's just another facet of your expertise, right? You see these issues and you can talk about the software and the solutions as well.
Right. It's really important to have a CRM system in place when you're talking anything sales, because it's not just about giving everybody in the organization visibility to what's going on, especially the CEO. You know, the CEO can have their own kind of dashboard. What's important for the CEO to know on a daily basis? What are the sales? What's the profit? You know, who's doing what at a you know, looking at it from 30,000 feet, while the rest of us are doing the work. And the work is really about building strong relationships with customers and making sure that everything is documented. The cautionary tale with the customer that tested a product and it wasn't documented. Those are the types of things that are really, really important to know. They're critical for the success of the business and the success of the relationship with the customer. So building strong relationships, delivering exceptional customer service. And that speaks to not just sales, everybody in the organization. I worked for a CEO that used to say to me, Alison, sales is a team sport. That means everybody is in on this, everybody. Operations, finance, everybody. And when you have a CRM system, everybody can be in on it, because you could have a quick meeting, look in CRM, know what's going on, everybody's on the same page, and then you collaborate and come up with solutions. So it's really important.
I love the analogy of a team sport. As a fractional CFO, oftentimes I'm wondering what in the heck the sales team is doing. I hear them saying they're making calls. Sometimes I walk by and they're doing a crossword puzzle, but I'm kind of wondering, where are the results? What can I see in terms of progress? And not that I need to be the bad guy, but just like, I'm curious, I want to know. And having that CRM dashboard, you talked about one for a CEO. I would hope there's a way to make one for a CFO as well, just to see, like, are we on track? Are we doing what we said we would do? Do we need to tweak some things? Not that I would go in there and tweak them, but I would want to be on the same page with my other leaders to be able to say something along the lines of, hey, like, I'm sure that you saw this as well. What are we doing about whatever this might be? This metric that we're now tracking. And it's really tough to get that. As much as I love Excel and I can make some fancy pivot tables, that should not be used for salespeople. They should not even have an Excel on their computer, probably. Like, they just don't use Excel.
Yeah.
Take away the sticky notes. We're going to actually use a software. But I bet one of the ways to encourage that is to pull up those reports during performance reviews and say, look, this is how many calls you made in a week or in a month. Here's the documents that you put in here. Here's the notes, and kind of just everything points back to that CRM and what value that would bring to an organization. And even further than that, Alison, is what value you would bring to the organization as a sales leader to know the value of that software. More importantly, know how to implement it. I can't tell you how many times I've heard of companies trying Salesforce or trying a software, and it launches with a dud. Nobody's using it. Well, so-and-so's not using it, so I'm not going to use it. And then, like, nobody ends up using it. They spend all this money for nothing. They have no CRM. And it's really kind of frustrating for the CFO to be like, well, why did we spend $10,000 or $20,000 or even more than that? We're still not even adapting to it. So to have another voice kind of echoing some of the same things in that leadership team would be really, really valuable. Alison, one of the things that I wanted to kind of wrap up with here was just kind of reiterating, your background. You are an executive who works in organizations, big and small, but you play this fractional VP of sales and sales leadership role, right? So you're able to work in a number of different industries, but your background happens to be in food manufacturing, food packaging. In our first episode, we did talk about, the company you worked with that really, I think it was a recent one. It was Anthill North America and Stone Straw. And so, $1 billion orders here and there, going to these different food groups and different food companies probably helped, kind of further develop your skills, but also give you a lot of insight into how some of these enterprise relationships are managed, right?
Yeah, definitely, Matt. My time at Anthill and Stone was really, really important to hone my skills. I learned a lot. I learned a lot from the leadership there as well. And by trial and error, a lot of things were learned as well. So yeah, definitely hone my skills. Being a fractional is great because I'm not a consultant. I can go into an organization and act as the sales leader and get into the weeds and, you know, do the assessment and work with the sales team, one-on-ones with the sales team, coach them, guide them, develop them, and really make sure that the organization is geared up for sustainable future.
Thanks for that, Allison. Yeah, I think about your skill set as being able to not only talk strategy with the executive, which would be really interesting, but also, you know, one-on-one time and mentoring and guiding some of these sales reps. And then further than that is just kind of being able to speak to the different departments, whether it's operations or finance or the CEO, and just kind of give everybody confidence into what's going on and having an accountable figure there to really kind of drive sales. So again, I'm here with Alison White. Thank you so much for your time, Allison. I really appreciate, you know, your dedication to your craft, as well as, you know, just giving me some of your time today and unpacking this case study. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate you including me in this, Matt. It was a really great pleasure to work with you on this. Thank you so much.